What's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent, and today I'm going to be trying to one-shot a top 10 list here. In fact, I do it all the time, but this is a big top 10, okay? But I really want to talk from the heart here. If you let me do that, please, thank you. I think you really appreciate it. This is going to be top 10 MMORPGs. Just period, not just free to play, not just buy to play, not just subscription based, whatever, not just, action RPGs. No, we're talking about specifically the massively multiplayer online role-playing games, all that together, those specific games, that's right. So those specific games, there's not too many of those massive games out there, right? It's pretty obvious, it's pretty self-evident, but maybe I can, add a little bit of flavor to the conversation here. So here's my ranking. They're not really ordered in anything special, right? All these games kind of cater to different audiences, etc. So yeah, they're based kind of on, I don't know, whatever. I just threw them on the list like that. Yeah, okay, cool. So let's start off the list by talking about Archeage. Archeage is a sandbox MMO, I guess in terms of endgame, right? But whenever you first start the game, it doesn't seem like that. It actually seems very linear. You have a very, literal line that you follow through progressing through the game, but that's just kind of like the leveling. When you actually get into the meat of the game, which takes a little bit, then it truly kind of becomes a sandbox. Yeah, so it's a PvP game, and with that, it's a little bit debatable how fun the game can be. I mean, it depends on your mindset, but the game is kind of a little bit sort of pay to win. Some people would say it's very pay to win, but it really depends on how you as a player play, because in the end, it is a sandbox game. So just keep that in mind. Other than that, Archeage is actually pretty unique because you can build houses, there's boats and things I guess you can make, and also there is a unique class system where you can kind of pick between 3 different classes and different abilities in that, so really unique character builder there. Yep. Anyways, moving on, we have a game called The Secret World. Yeah, so this game goes under the radar just non-stop, and maybe that's kind of a good thing, because it's allowed itself to focus completely on its niche. So yes, the combat probably leaves something to be desired, but in the end, The Secret World isn't just about its combat. Even though it sold itself in the very beginning, I remember it was constantly trying to advertise its unique combat system, because you can kind of like deck build with all sorts of different abilities and stuff, but really The Secret World, what makes it special is it has a very interesting role-play community. Like, they take it very seriously. Not only that, but the world building of The Secret World and its story elements are extremely good. Probably the best in any game, okay? Definitely rivaling some games that just focus on the story, even non-multiplayer games. So yeah, seriously. Next game we have is Tera. Tera is one of the biggest free-to-play MMOs out there. Not the biggest, actually, but in terms of, like, hardcore endgame raiding MMOs, like, free-to-play, Tera is, like, the MMO, okay? Now, it's not that optimized, to be honest, and it's a little bit older, and there are some interesting design decisions with some of its classes, being gender-locked, especially to the Lolly class, okay? And it's a little bit cheesy, in my opinion, for some of the character designs, but then again, that's just my personal bias, right? But Tera is actually very interesting. If you're a fan of World of Warcraft with the endgame raiding, and you want that group content that's actually very challenging, then Tera has sort of a unique take on that, slightly kind of sort of, because it does have action combat. It's really more like pseudo-action combat, in my opinion. I don't think it's true action combat. It's nothing like what you would see in a proper action RPG. Maybe something, or like Dragon Nest, actually. So yeah, not quite true action combat, but it is action-y, I guess. Anyways, next up I have Wildstar here. Yeah, Wildstar I think is a great game. It's a great MMO. It does have really nice, challenging endgame rating. It's nowhere near as popular as Tera. Obviously, we know the stories of Wildstar, but in the end, it is a really polished, finely tuned game, okay? There's really unique classes, really unique mechanics and gameplay there, but it just kind of, on the surface, it really does look like a lot of other games, okay? And the questing is pretty boring. Even like, there is a little bit of humor with that. If it doesn't tickle you, right, then it's not going to hit home, and it didn't. It really didn't. A lot of people would rather stick with their World of Warcrafts or play, games that are already established, like Tera. So yeah, Wildstar doesn't have that big of a population, but seriously, it is a solid game. It really is. RuneScape 3. Specifically, guys, I'm putting RuneScape 3 because during my streaming with old school RuneScape, I definitely rage quit, okay? I feel like old school RuneScape is for older players, nostalgic players, and the numbers are growing, but I really don't think that many new players are joining in RuneScape. I think a lot of just older players are, constantly returning, that's cool and everything, but even though I had nostalgia goggles on, equipped, dude, I didn't really enjoy my time. I felt like it lacked a tremendous amount of polish that could have been polished up, in the time that it's been, since 2007. Yeah. Well, anyways, that game is RuneScape 3 now. So yeah, you can play RuneScape 3 and have a lot of fun. There's a lot of polish. It's missing some of, like, I guess probably the uniquities that a lot of people who play old school RuneScape really want to be in the game, but it just doesn't exist. I don't know. I think it's debatable, but in my opinion, I think RuneScape 3 is the better product. That is probably going to be very contested in the comments, absolutely, but that is my opinion. If you want to play a really cool, fun, free-to-play game, check out RuneScape 3. And if you want to continue playing with a subscription, RuneScape 3 still has a pretty awesome endgame. You know, not all the big streamers are just playing old-school RuneScape. Most of them, yeah, but not everyone, okay? And not everyone enjoys all the bots that, you know, populate old-school RuneScape. So check out RuneScape 3, please. Next up, we have, obviously, World of Warcraft. I really honestly don't even need to say anything at this point. You know that it's all about that end game, okay? It's really more about those dungeons, playing with your friends, you know, at a casual level or hardcore with the raiding. That's what World of Warcraft mainly is. Its leveling is pretty fun, though, if you just want to make a free account. Honestly, like, seriously, guys, if you just make a free account and play the Undead starting zone, you'll actually have a really good time. It's seriously not bad. I think Worgen is also a pretty good starting zone. Let me know in the comments below what you think is the best starting zone. But seriously, like over the years, I've just constantly been making new free-to-play like little characters. And ever since Cataclysm, they reworked a lot of the stuff, and it's freaking good, dude. It's really good stories. Anyways, if you actually do subscribe, though, the endgame is top-notch. Only competed with, I guess, maybe something like Tera, kind of a barely, and really Final Fantasy XIV is its only true competition. And then it's really kind of a different game at the same time. Next game we have is Black Desert. This is a true sandbox game. It's a giant sandbox, and that's good and bad, of course. So it's good in the sense that you can kind of figure out new ways to play the game. You can play the game in ways that nobody really kind of thought you could do that. I mean, I didn't know you could just be a horse breeder. Some people are just like fishers and shit. Like it's pretty crazy, but at the same time, the game only really offers, you know, different levels and flavors of grind, kind of. There's no raiding, there's no dungeons, proper dungeons, and there is PvP, but while the mechanics of the Black Desert aesthetically look pretty cool, I guess, and mechanically they are like the most intense out of any MMO period, even rivaling a lot of action RPGs, the thing is that it's not as balanced as a lot of people would like. Same, I guess, conversation that you would have with Archeage. So yeah, kind of sucks about that. Black Desert is a little bit pay to win, but I think it's been eased up a little bit. Okay, we'll have to see how the game evolves from here. But anyways, there is a conversation to be had about how Black Desert really, I guess fares against other people, being fair. Elder Scrolls Online is the next game that I want to talk about, and this is a cool game that hits, I guess, 3 points, okay, and 3 different kinds of people, or maybe 4 if you like all 3 points. Okay, so 1, it's going to be the people that like dungeons. There are some dungeons. There's some group content to be had in this game. Dungeons, throughout all levels. It's very, I guess, light considering things. World of Warcraft has more dungeons, but I guess technically a lot of the World of Warcraft dungeons you just run through them, right? They're not, they're kind of bypassed old content. So yeah. Anyways, Elder Scrolls Online actually has pretty worthwhile content, I think. It's pretty good. It's not as in-depth as some of the more established games, but it's actually pretty fun, pretty cool. Next, we have the PvP, the world versus, well, it's like server versus, I don't know how they explain it in this game. Anyways, it's faction versus faction versus faction. It's going to be similar to Guild Wars 2, or maybe something like Dark Age of Camelot, similar to that, but I think Elder Scrolls Online actually does it the best in terms of this. They don't have arenas or anything like that, so this is really their own one PvP mode, and it's really, really good with its siege combat. Next up, then, we have just like the leveling, the single-player content, essentially. Like, you can just, run around the world, and it does feel kind of single-player, but everything is voiced. All the quests are actually decent and good. And in my opinion, I feel like Elder Scrolls, like, just the series, the franchise as a whole, its world building, is not very exciting. It's very usual. There's a lot of cliche and tropes. But if you actually listen to these quests, which you will listen because they're voiced, you get a lot of kind of character, and that's really, really good. So in that sense, the writing's good. Okay, next up we have Final Fantasy XIV, which is a pretty neat game. Okay, so some people are going to be turned off by Final Fantasy XIV because it's kind of slow-paced at the beginning. And honestly, that's why I haven't gone too much further in the game. But the truth is that, like, later on, you get way, way more abilities. And even though the game is still, like, overall mechanically a little bit slower, you're not as mobile, it's not as ridiculous as something like World of Warcraft or Guild Wars 2 or Wildstar. It's a little bit more tactical, I would say, but it still is like really fucking good gameplay. There still is a lot to do. But yeah, the Final Fantasy XIV is a game that you kind of immerse yourself in the story, in your character, and in the characters of the world as you level up, if you can. If you don't like it, then you fucking don't like it, and I guess that's how it is. But the game is going to be focused on the end game, okay? The end game dungeon content. So it's going to be basically the one true competitor to World of Warcraft in terms of sub counts and also similar gameplay, the focus on design there. So yeah, Final Fantasy XIV is a high production MMO, and its expansion's coming out pretty freaking soon. Maybe by the time you see this video, the expansion comes out, and it's supposed to revamp some things, add new, of course, it's an expansion, but it's supposed to revamp some combat. So I think with that, a lot of people are going to jump into Final Fantasy XIV. Hopefully, it's a pretty cool game, and you can play it on PS4 as well, guys. And lastly, let's talk about Guild Wars 2. This is the MMO that I put the most amount of time into because it's just a really fun casual game, and there's just a couple of main points that make this game very, very special to me personally. One's going to be the seasonal events, okay? They have a living story update, so like it's the campaign, kind of, like there is a single-player campaign, kind of similar to the Star Wars The Old Republic. You can do that, okay? But there's also a living story update, so like it's episodic, and it's just going to continuously expand. Right? That's pretty awesome. Then you have the true seasonal events, which are like holiday events, or sometimes they're in-game holiday events. Like they're not parody with like real life holidays. And they have mini games with these. They have like, new Easter egg hunts, and they have all these new, of course, cosmetic items added to the game. But it's not just getting new cosmetic items. Like there's literal actual content always being added to the game. And there's some situations, there's been some times where Guild Wars 2 has literally destroyed a city and then rebuilt the city. There have been times where entire zones have been like floored or burned across or plagued and then rebuilt and stuff. So it's really freaking awesome that Guild Wars 2 can permanently change because of this evolution. Also, its combat's pretty awesome. It does have a sort of esportish PvP scene with its structured PvP, and it has like the world versus world versus world, or server versus server, whatever. Anyways, it does have that. It's not, in my opinion, it's not as good as Elder Scrolls Online, but overall, the mechanics of Guild Wars 2, even though it's tab targeted, it's way more action-packed than many games on this list or otherwise. And it does have an optional action target system too, so it actually plays really good with the controller. I actually prefer to play it with a Steam controller. Works out just fine. So Guild Wars 2 is really fun. I like it. I know it doesn't have, super hardcore endgame raiding, though they did just add in raids. I think the game is gonna just constantly evolve, and that's kind of been the point. So yeah. Anyways, friends and family, that's the end of the top 10 list. These games honestly really speak for themselves. They're massive games, they're massive productions. They probably had massive advertising campaigns, so you probably know about them a little bit. But if you missed a game, there's a couple on this list that really were under the radar, then hopefully you have been enlightened that yes, they are among the greats. They really are. It's not just one or two MMO that are truly massive. There's a lot of massive games out there that just massively go under the radar. Anyways, so those are my personal pick for top 10. They do kind of explain themselves, so hopefully, I didn't need to Wikipedia page this shit so that you guys know what these games are. Just wanted to give you my personal thoughts and feelings on these games, and I guess I'll just end off by saying, personally, coming into the future, I personally will be playing Black Desert a lot. I'll be playing RuneScape 3 a lot, and I might even jump into Archeage, but again, Archeage is a little bit weird with Shrine Worlds. So yeah, also Final Fantasy XIV coming into the expansion, I'll be playing that game as well, and Elder Scrolls Online. Basically half the list there. And I'm always playing Guild Wars 2. That should be a given. So, thanks for listening, guys. My name is Skylent. Either game, whatever you play on the list or not, let me know in the comments below. And either way, I hope you do have fun. And I'll see you in the next one.